Okay, welcome back. We're going to be looking at peripheral circulation, some of the main blood vessels, some of the main arteries and veins that you may see on your lab test. So let's start here off of the arch of the aorta. We can see the 1, 2, 3 main blood vessels that come off of it. On the right side is the brachiocephalic, the left common carotid, and the left subclavian. If we follow the arch of the aorta down to the descending aorta, when it goes through the diaphragm, we're now looking at the abdominal aorta. So off of the abdominal aorta, we're going to focus on 3 main branches that come off of it. One is this group here called the celiac trunk, a superior mesenteric artery, and an inferior mesenteric artery. From the celiac trunk, we have one branch that comes off to the right side, called the hepatic artery. We have a gastric artery, or left gastric artery, and then we have a splenic artery. Inferior to those 3 branches off the celiac trunk is the superior mesenteric, and the superior mesenteric we can see. You can also see it in the back, superior mesenteric and inferior mesenteric. That group is going to supply your small intestines and large intestines. The superior mesenteric will get your ascending colon and half of the transverse colon, and then the inferior mesenteric will get the rest of the transverse colon, the descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum, and anus. Okay. While I have this on the back, you can see the hepatic portal vein here, and we can also see it on the liver itself, the hepatic portal vein here as well. Hepatic portal is going to shunt blood from the digestive tract to the liver before it returns it to general circulation. Okay, so there's the superior mesenteric, inferior mesenteric. Then we'll notice that the abdominal aorta splits into the common iliac, so left and right common iliac. Anytime you see the word common, you can assume that it will split into an internal and external. So this common carotid will split into an internal and external iliac. I think I said carotid, so let me correct myself. So this right common iliac, left common iliac will split into a left internal iliac and a right external iliac. Same thing on the left side. This left common iliac will divide into a left internal and external iliac. The iliac artery will continue to descend down into the femoral artery. We have a femoral artery here and another femoral artery coming through here. Let me backtrack. Near the abdominal aorta, you can see what feeds the kidneys is that renal artery. And let's look at some of the venous structures here. We have an external jugular vein, and we have an internal jugular vein. So remember, on the arterial side, we had carotids, but on the venous side, they're called jugulars. So we have an external jugular and an internal jugular. This will drain the outside of the head and the face, and it will drain the brain of the blood, bring it back into the superior vena cava, into the heart. Here in the axillary region, we have the axillary vein and the basilic vein. And I think we can continue. Do we have time to continue on here? So let's continue here. And let's start with the upper extremity. There's the arch of the aorta with the 1, 2, 3 branches that come off of it. Brachiocephalic on the right side, left common carotid, left subclavian. If we follow that brachiocephalic, we can see that it comes up into a common carotid, and here is the left subclavian, sorry, the right subclavian. Here's the right subclavian, which will become the right axillary artery. The right axillary goes down, passes the arm or the brachium, so that's your brachium or brachial artery. Your brachial artery descends into the forearm, where it splits into a right radial and a right ulnar artery. The right radial and ulnar artery, those come down and feed the palmar arch. There's a deep and superficial palmar arch, which then branch off and bring blood to the fingers. If we follow the abdominal aorta through the diaphragm, we can see that there's a celiac trunk, a superior mesenteric, and it doesn't show the inferior mesenteric very well, but if it was here, it would be somewhere right around there. Here's the common iliac, and the common iliac comes down. We'll see that the common iliac becomes the femoral artery, and the femoral artery comes down, and it too kind of splits. You'll see that here's the femoral, and it becomes, the femoral artery here will become the popliteal. And that popliteal artery that's behind that popliteal fossa in back of the knee, it splits into a posterior tibial and an anterior tibial artery. So here's the posterior tibial artery, it's following the posterior tibia. There's the anterior tibial right there. And we can see that if it followed through, it would be this one right here. That's the anterior tibial artery. That becomes the dorsal pedal. The top of the foot is called the dorsum. We can see the anterior tibial artery here as well. That also feeds the top of the foot, the dorsum of the foot. What else do we have here? Here is the great saphenous vein. Saphenous means the most apparent, and you can see, look at that, it comes the full length of the thigh all the way down to the posterior calf, down to the toes. Everything else is pretty much the same. It follows the course of the arterial supply. So if there's a common iliac, there's also a common iliac vein. If there's an internal iliac artery, there's an internal iliac vein. If there's an external iliac artery, there's an external iliac vein. The big differences were especially up here with the carotids versus the jugular. Please keep that in mind. Okay, and did we cover everything? I think we finished everything. That's a general, very general overview of the blood supply. Stay tuned. We'll do a very brief one on the blood for you as well.